Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 1 of Vaughn Sports Madness. I'm Vaughn. I'll be your host for today. Like we said yesterday, for those of you brand new here, well, we're all brand new here because this is the first episode. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of set this up. We're going to have like 4 15-minute segments, more or less. We're going to talk about a lot of the stuff in the world of sports today that you're wanting to know about, that the things that you care about, and the things that you're wanting to discuss here in this setup. We haven't gotten any feedback yet, so I'll just go ahead and kind of take the discussion in the pertinent field right now, and then we can kind of go from there. Again, I introduced myself yesterday, but again, by just a little bit more way of introduction. Like I said, my name is Vaughn. I've been doing sports talk radio for 7 years here in kind of the South Central region, Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. I've done play-by-play for that same amount of time. Right now, I'm currently the play-by-play voice for the University of Arkansas at Monticello, by the way, whose baseball team is making an appearance in the NCAA Division II regional tournament today. Their first game is against Missouri Western, and that is at 4:30 Central Time this afternoon. And that game is up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. They'll have the play-by-play on uamsports.com. You can catch that there. I believe the NCAA Division II website will also be carrying those broadcasts. And then I'm going to be live tweeting during that game as well. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like, at Voice of UAM. And if you can follow me there. That's just kind of a little plug for the UAM stuff that's going on right now. I'm actually a little bit ill, so I was unable to make the trip up to Minnesota with the group. If they win out of that region, then they'll go ahead and advance to Cary, North Carolina, and the Division II College World Series. So, got to wish the UAM baseball team just a ton of luck, and congratulations on an extremely successful season up to this point. We'll go ahead and start today just kind of talking about the Western Conference final yesterday, Game 2 between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Golden State Warriors. Oklahoma City, kind of stunned the sports world by beating San Antonio in 6 games in really what was kind of a dominating fashion. After that Game 1 blowout where they lost, they came around, they won 4 of the next 5 against San Antonio. People are like, yeah, well, they had some help from the referees, and no, they just outplayed San Antonio. That's all there was to it. And I think what the key was in that series, and then it carried over into the Golden State series, was that the Thunder finally used, after, 3 seasons now, they finally figured out how to use Steven Adams. And they're using him effectively. He's able to post up. He's not a great perimeter defender, but generally as a 5, you don't have to be. Now, in this league where the teams are getting smaller and smaller, you have to increasingly be able to guard the perimeter. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit as it pertains to the Golden State series. But yeah, Steven Adams, really kind of had a coming out party against San Antonio. He, after getting absolutely embarrassed in games 1 and 2 against the Spurs, he turned around and was really able to impose his will in those next few games. And then carry that over into the Golden State series. Game 1, same thing. He was able to establish himself. He was able to really get in there and wreak all sorts of havoc on the Golden State interior. And Golden State got out of their character as well. They started to try and play Oklahoma City's game, and it just didn't work. The Thunder were certainly a capable and worthy opponent for Golden State. We saw it in the regular season matchups. So many teams against Golden State this year were just overwhelmed and overmatched. The Thunder lost all 3 of their games, but they weren't overwhelmed, they weren't overmatched, and you could tell in their games they weren't afraid of the Warriors. They were able to hang with them. They were able to keep up with them. And you kind of had a sneaking suspicion that if the Spurs stumbled in the playoffs, that Oklahoma City would step in and they would be a worthy opponent for the Warriors. And that, in the regular season, that proved to be the case. Game 1, it certainly proved to be the case, as the Thunder, who made a living all season long of choking away fourth quarter leads. It was well documented how bad the Thunder were in blowing fourth quarter leads. It started in the San Antonio series. The last 4 games of the San Antonio series, Oklahoma City gave up, I think it was 16 points, 15 or 16 points per quarter. And then in game 1 of the Western Conference Final against the vaunted Golden State Warrior offense, they gave up, was it 14 points, 16 points again in that game 1. And so they took the early 1-0 lead. They won in Oakland, which was, not supposed to happen. And so then all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, the Thunder, they're going to win everything. They're going to sweep the Warriors. And you knew that there was no way that Golden State was going to be held to those kind of numbers again, or at least in back-to-back games, and especially not at home. And in the first half of the game last night, Thunder and Warrior, they held close. Oklahoma City came back. They took a lead. I want to say it was like 47-45 or something like that. And then the wheels just fell off for Oklahoma City. And Steph Curry just came alive, scoring 15 points in the final 2 minutes of the second quarter. Just him. And they were able to storm back, take a 57-49 lead, I think it was, going into half. And then they just blitzed the Thunder in the second half, outscoring them by 20, doing what the Warriors have done to people all year long. They end up winning 118-91 in a game that wasn't that close. You remember the Thunder in game 1 against the Spurs trailed by 43 in the fourth quarter. This was that same kind of game. Well, except in that one, the Thunder were never in it. In this one, the Thunder were in it for a half, but then it's like in the second half, they're just like, they had no idea what to do. They couldn't defend. They were turning the ball over, doing everything that they had done to lose that game 1 against the Spurs by 43. It's like they said, hey, let's carbon copy that and do it again here today. And they just got blitzed. Gave up 118 points to the Warriors, which, again, is what Golden State has been doing to people all year long. And it took the Warriors 6 quarters in this series to figure out, you know what, we've got to do what we do. Otherwise, this 73-9 season, this historic season that we've had, is going to be for nothing. And Steve Kerr got hold of his troops and said, look, play your game. And we will beat these guys because they can't play our game the way we can. Nobody can. And so that was what happened. Warriors scored 61 points in the second half. And it's not like they had a bad first half. They scored 57 in the first half. Oklahoma City had 49, 8 points. That's not... Teams come back from 8-point deficits all the time. But just like that, in the third quarter, the lead ballooned to 20, 25, 26, 27 in the third quarter. And then it just continued in the fourth. It got to 32, 34, 36 in that fourth quarter. After the Thunder took a late 2-point lead in the second quarter. And it ended up, trying to do some quick math here in my head. After the Thunder took that lead, Golden State outscored Oklahoma City 69-42 the rest of the way. And it just, it was 71-42 after the Thunder took that lead. And it just, it just went from there. And there was no way the Thunder just could not keep up. And so here's the key now for the rest of the series. The series is tied at 1 going back to Oklahoma City. Yes, the Thunder now have home court advantage. They got one of the two. But man, they just got blown out by Golden State. Not in game 1, but in game 2. And they're going back to Oklahoma, and they've got a good crowd in Oklahoma. If you've never been to a game out in Oklahoma, or you're not really familiar with the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have a very good home crowd. And a lot of people forget the way that Oklahoma got a franchise in the first place. Remember during Hurricane Katrina, the New Orleans Hornets were homeless, basically. New Orleans was a mess. They just, the last thing they needed to worry about was professional sports. And so the New Orleans Saints relocated, spent the season in San Antonio, and the New Orleans Hornets went to Oklahoma City. And they all operated under their names. They were the New Orleans Hornets in Oklahoma City, and they were the New Orleans Saints in San Antonio. And they had 41 home games, and they sold out all 41 home games in Oklahoma City. A town that was not prepared to have an NBA team, a town that did not have any NBA team, and a town who was in another NBA team's market in Dallas. Oklahoma City was a big part of the Dallas Mavericks market at that time. And they're all pretty big, especially, in central Oklahoma, especially, they're all big Mavericks fans. Once you get out to western Oklahoma, northern Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma Panhandle, kind of southwestern Kansas, there they kind of start transitioning over to the Denver Nuggets market. But, they were all squarely Dallas Mavericks fans there in Oklahoma City. And the Hornets went there, had the season, and they sold out every game. And the NBA took notice, and they said, well, you know what? They clearly support this team that isn't even theirs. And they took a look at what was going on in Seattle and the issues that were going on there. And I know that's still a sore subject. A lot of people in Seattle think that they were kind of screwed out of a team. View it how you will. They weren't willing to support the team when it came down to it. They needed an arena. Key Arena was falling apart. And the citizenry were not going to pay for a new arena. The city wasn't going to pay for a new arena. And they had to do something. So the Supersonics said, we're gone. And the league said, well, hey, why don't you take them to Oklahoma City? So they did. And they're a very faithful fan base there in Oklahoma. Having said all of that, the Thunder are not going to win 2 at home against Golden State. This thing is not going to go back to Oracle 3-1 favor Oklahoma City. Even if Durant goes on fire, even if Westbrook turns back into his triple-double self, and even if Steven Adams is doing his thing, they're not going to be able to hang with Golden State. So calm down. The Thunder are not going to win this series against Golden State. They may win another game. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and make my prediction right now. I think the Warriors will win this series. I think they'll win it in 6. I think the Warriors will take game 3 in fairly convincing manner. I'll say about 12 points or so. I think the Thunder will win game 4 because they're a proud group. And you got to remember, they're fairly certain that they're going to lose Kevin Durant after this season. So they're going to fight hard to keep him. They're going to go back to Oracle. Warriors are going to blow the doors off of him in Game 5, and then Game 6 is just going to be a show and out party for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And that's what's going to happen. And then the Warriors will go to the NBA Final, where they will destroy Cleveland, and they'll have it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll go ahead and switch it over to part 2 of the 4-part. We come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Eastern Conference Final, what's going on there. Cleveland just steamrolling the competition out east. Talk a little bit of Major League Baseball, talk some more other stuff. Got some NHL playoffs to talk about, just kind of break those series down a little bit. But that's where we're headed right now. So we're taking a quick break, and we will be back on Sports Madness here in just a moment.